Weird Dreams by Rupert Goodwins. Chapter 1. Day broke over Plymouth, bringing a slow grey sky, damp morose streets and damp morose milkmen, finished off by a minor surge in the electricity supply as 250,000 clock radios tuned into the early morning show. Waking up is hard to do, thought Steve. Radio playing, birds singing, Monday morning. He sighed, turned over, and without opening his eyes, hit the radio right on the snooze button. That'd teach it. Another 5 minutes wouldn't hurt. But radios are made of sterner stuff. 5 minutes later, unbowed by such early morning violence, it resumed its unspeakable pop, which turned in time into unpalatable news. Yawn. He really should get up now, or he'd have to run for the bus again. Strange, his usual warm sleepiness was mixed with something else. 2 records after the news. He really had to get up now. This disgusting pair of boxer shorts, that shirt would do for today, and into the bathroom to shave his teeth. Breakfast, paper, and irresponsible TV weatherman later, Steve had diagnosed his problem. He was feeling a bit peaky, as his mum would have said had she not been living in North Dakota. Nothing worse than that. Still, Steve mused, perhaps he was coming down with flu. Perhaps he ought to get something for it. To really get Monday going, among the junk mail was a note from his dentist reminding him of his 6-monthly checkup, which was, he noticed, tomorrow. Super. He ran for the bus, went upstairs, and he read the paper, then trudged the 10-minute walk from stop to work. Wet pavements and grey skies. It wasn't actually raining, but that was only a matter of time. Did nothing to remove his malaise. In the office, he mentioned his lack of well-being to Emily, a bright girl in the post-room he'd got his eye on. He'd often wondered whether he should ask her out, but just as often decided not to. Never know, keep the friendship going, and who knows what might happen. He'd never noticed, which was a bit insensitive on his part, that Emily was bored with life. More importantly, and this really wasn't his fault, he'd never noticed that she was a bored demon, one of those mythical creatures who spend their eternal lives pushing misery, evil, and discord. Emily hadn't started out as a demon. Few people do. Her body had been possessed by the spirit Zeloripus as she waited out her punishment. 3,000 years ago, Zeloripus had been banished from the central circle of the court of Astlarium in trial for a crime against fellow demons. A crime so despicable that, had it worked, she would have charged the Great One herself. Given human form and stripped of many of her demonic powers, she was sent to live the life of a mortal being on one of the less pleasant planets, Earth. As each host body died, she hopped into a new one, taking over the mind and feeding on the soul. 3,000 years into her sentence, with 3,000 more to go, she was not happy. 60 centuries in Plymouth is enough to embitter anyone, even one whose residual evilness could, if focused, melt a toddler's ice cream from a distance of 10 miles. Today there were many puddles of Giuseppe's famous Italian ice cream on the pavements of Plymouth, for today was special. Exactly halfway through Zeloripus' exile, she was feeling mean and ornery and disposed to high mischief. She despised the humans whose form she took. They, by and large, achieved oblivion in just about 70 short years. She especially despised Steve, whose somnolent form, sonorously snoring through lunch breaks, was a continual reminder of a contented peace of mind denied her. Demons don't sleep. Chances are that another lurks nearby with designs on their soul stuff. A diabolic doze is the best they can normally manage. Even this is denied to those cast out of Hades because of the forces of good that are on constant watch. Even, it has to be said, in Plymouth, where 3,000 years of sleepless nights and boring days were driving Zeloripus close to breaking point. So far she'd stuck to the rules, because using what remained of her powers to tamper with mortal affairs could double or treble her stay on Earth. But only if she was detected. The temptation to lash out at something or someone was growing. Her current job with Plymouth's third most successful producer of soap was not helping things. So mere bad timing could explain Steve's unhappy encounter with Zeloripus, or with Emily as she should be called, on this day in particular. Maybe it was just bad luck that accounted for the copious yawns, heavy eyelids and sleep-slurred voice with which she listened the conversation over her franking machine. But the following conversation was almost too bad to be true. "Hiya, Emily," said Steve. "You're looking wide-eyed for a Monday morning. Wish I could be so awake, but I've been in bed most of the weekend." "Poor soul," said Emily. "What's the matter?" "Oh, I don't know. I think it's a touch of the flu. All I can do is sleep. It was a real effort to get up today. You don't know of anything that could perk me up a bit, do you?" Emily, bitter from boredom, was close to the edge. "No," she said. "I don't usually get that sort of problem. With sleeping, I mean." It was probably his attempt at humour, or maybe it was a particularly clumsy chat-up line that did it. "Perhaps he should sleep with me. It will maybe rub off a little. It's nothing like a good night's kip to make your fellow man seem a bit nicer." "I'm sure," said Emily, with a smile so sharp it was opening the letters, "that you're right there. Tell me, Steve, do you dream?" "Dream? No, I can't say that I do. Not that I remember, that is. But if I did, it would be of you." "How sweet. Perhaps I could help you at least." And here the smile was diamond-tipped. "With the flu. I think I might have something in my handbag. Hold on, let me go get it." Steve was pleased. It might be worth asking her out after all. "Let's see, there's the funfair out of town. No, she's too bright for that." Outside, the weak sunlight darkened for a moment, as if a cloud had passed. She came back. "Here we are. Something I got from a drugstore last time I had the flu." It was a small brown bottle with an indistinct label and, just visible in the powdery interior, 3 white pills. "You're supposed to have them before a meal. Just take the lot tonight with a bottle of red wine and some cheese, and you'll be a new man." "Oh, thanks very much, Emily," said Steve, taking the bottle from her hand. "I'll do that. Look, what are you doing this weekend? Do you fancy a trip to see the new Stallone film or something?" "Oh, I'm not sure," lied the being with 3,000 years' worth of identical Plymouthian weekends stretched out in front of her. "Let's see how you're feeling in a couple of days. Wouldn't want to overexert yourself during your convalescence." "Oh, I'm sure I'll be fine. I don't think I'll change my mind." "We'll see," said Emily, allowing just a hint of cold, evil-tinged boredom to slip out. That evening Steve wondered about Emily's last words. There was something not quite right, he decided, and came to a similar conclusion about the thrice-microwaved chili con carne sitting in a bowl in the fridge. Then he remembered that wine and cheese had been recommended, and although he was feeling fine by now, he thought that taking the lady's medicine, followed by a triumphal Tuesday morning, could do no harm. He had the cheese, and trotted out to the nearest 7-Eleven to get a bottle of red wine. Back at home, he emptied the 3 pills out of the bottle into his hand. Nothing special, thought he, and with a flourish popped them into his mouth and washed them down with a long draught of Burgundy. The cheese sandwich followed. A quick scan of the TV pages, why is there never anything on a Monday night, convinced him of the desirability of bed. It's not generally appreciated that much magic is real, test-tubed and white-coated science. Merlin's laboratory technique would have brought murmurs of approval from Pasteur, and watching Shiva smite, from a safe distance, might well have enlightened Einstein still further. It's just that while the great unwashed mass of men were more interested in squabbling sex than smallpox, it contented the immortals to hide their rational prowess behind a web of mystic mishmash. Sure, there is true magic to be had, but using it brings many repercussions which might not be completely controllable. Many magicians had lost their souls in the long research program which, although almost half as old as the universe, was still not producing results. But boy was it over budget. Some of its more spectacular failures were still puzzling astronomers from 1,000 worlds, more than a few of whom were unexpected byproducts from an experiment or two themselves. Emily was especially wary of employing the dark arts. Not only had it landed her in this mess in the first place, but its use could signal loud and clear her position to any number of undesirable companions from the busybodies at Seslarium, or something far more sinister. As it was, materializing the pills had been risky enough. Her excellent knowledge of human biochemistry helped her from there. As Steve dropped off to sleep, the pills were lying inert in his stomach. Slowly, the gastric acid ate away at the outer case, and the compounds within began to diffuse out. And what compounds the likes of which had not been seen on Earth before, or, it's safe to assume, since. Any chemist worth his NaCl would have given his spatula to have been in on the action. First, the long-chain molecules from the cheese were broken down to several interesting substances. The alcohol from the wine helped carry these, and others from the pills themselves, to the stomach wall, through which they slipped like Mexicans into Texas. On the other side of the wall, the usual gang of enzymes were waiting to digest the evening meal, but they weren't ready for what came at them. The scene of chemical carnage was brutal, but short. Past the first stage of digestion, the intruding substances reached the bloodstream. Dissolved in the plasma, they drifted up until they got to Steve's brain. The blood-brain barrier, that wonderful filter that keeps hunks of pizza molecule out while letting oxygen in, was as effective as a traffic cop against a battalion of Soviet tanks. Emily's dark designs began their invidious work. Steve's brain was defenseless against the chemical onslaught. The vast and mostly unused network of neurons lay in front of them. Even as the last molecules were arriving, the compounds got to work. They diddled the dopamine receptors, they speeded up the cortical synapses, they nobbled the noradrenaline. A thin web of complex bonds spread deep into Steve's cerebellum like frost over a tree. Further and further they went until every part of his brain was invaded and controlled. For the most part, they did nothing, but somewhere else in the Plymouthian night a small chuckle of anticipation bounced off the flock wallpaper. In his sleep, Steve stirred and shivered.